I don't typically advise my clients down the route of rapid fat loss, but sometimes it's necessary. Let's imagine if you have a work deadline, you're working towards a photo shoot or something of that nature, or maybe psychologically you just prefer sprints rather than marathons. This can definitely be the case for many entrepreneurs, for high performers, for high achievers. So I'm not going to argue with your decision about to lose weight quickly or to do it nice and slowly. I'm simply going to show you how you can do it without rebounding and regaining all the weight back. The vast majority of your emphasis on a rapid fat loss phase actually needs to be in the aftercare. That's going to take up 2/3 of what we're doing here, because most fat loss efforts ultimately result in failure, and we want to get ahead of that because we have a higher risk when we're trying to lose weight aggressively. We're going to split this up into 3 distinct phases. We have the aggressive fat loss phase, we have the reverse diet phase, and then lastly, we have the performance phase. The first 2 phases are going to last between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how aggressive your timeline is. And that's 4 to 6 weeks each, I should say. And then the last phase, that's to be determined depending on the performance goal, and we'll come to that. Okay, so let's look at phase 1. This is the aggressive diet phase. This is where we are going to try and knock off anywhere from 1.5% to 2% of your total body weight per week, which is very aggressive. So like, let's imagine in a 100 kilo male, that might be a fat loss of between 6 to 8 kilos within a 4 to 6 week period. Quite a hefty result. We're going to drop our caloric intake by 25%. So we're going to bring it, let's imagine your maintenance calories were 2,400 calories. They're going to come all the way down to 1,800 calories. We're going to make sure that 30% of those calories at least are made up of your protein intake. So in this example, that would be 150 grams of protein as a minimum. That's going to be a pretty good rule of thumb, by the way, for most guys. You might have to go upwards of that, maybe 160 grams as a minimum. But the main goal here, the main priority is high protein intake. Don't overthink it, whilst also making sure we're at the required caloric intake. That's the main thing. And making sure that that caloric deficit is quite aggressive at somewhere between 20 to 25%. Okay, now that we've got the diet piece covered, and by the way, the diet is going to be the highest point of leverage in this aggressive fat loss phase. That's why we're not going to concern ourselves at all with cardio. The diet is going to be stressful enough. The last thing you need is too many variables that are draining your willpower, okay? We want to drop the variables that are not necessary at this phase. So we're going to swap out cardio for 10,000 steps per day. You know, just remember, cardio only accounts for 5% of your total daily energy output. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to focus on such a low leverage activity at this point. Now, cardio does serve other roles. It has a key role in regulating your appetite. So that's why in the evening, for example, it might make sense that instead of you sitting around watching something on the TV and thinking about all the food you could be eating, you take a nice, long, slow walk in the evening to distract yourself, to get outside in nature, to get other sources of stimulation. And that can make up your 10,000 steps and also keep you on track with your diet. Okay, so that's what I would do in that situation. The training that we're going to do is 3 to 4 resistance sessions per week. I would go at the upper end because we're trying to maintain as much lean mass as possible. You're going to be a bit more energy depleted because of the aggressiveness of the caloric deficit. So I would go nice and light with the weight. I'd keep the rep ranges high. I'd be swapping out compound lifts where I can for cables, machines, isolation exercises, and having a lot of stimulus placed, a lot of conscious effort placed on each muscle group itself. But we're choosing exercises which are quite low on overall systemic fatigue. We're not going to be doing barbell squats. We're not going to be doing the barbell deadlift. Even with some dumbbell exercises, we're going to swap those out for machines and cables where it makes sense. So even on our compound lifts, we're moving from free weights to machines and cables. Okay, let's get on to phase 2, right? So this is, you've achieved quite a hefty drop in body weight. At this phase, you're going to feel rather depleted in energy. You're going to feel irritable, but you're going to be happy with the weight loss results on the scale. But then you're going to see a disconnect where you're looking in the mirror and you're thinking, I don't look quite as lean as I thought I would look from this rapid drop in body weight. You'll feel a bit weaker. You'll question, have I lost a load of muscle mass? Probably not. I mean, you might have lost a little bit of lean mass, but most of this is going to be accounted for a loss of glycogen in the muscle cells. So that's why this phase of aftercare is so important, because what we're going to do is slowly but surely increase your glycogen in your muscle cells. We're going to increase your energy as we reverse diet you back up to your maintenance calories. Now, the reason we want to do this nice and slowly is that we are further solidifying your discipline around your nutrition. We're further solidifying your habits, so all other variables will largely stay the same. You can add maybe 1 or 2 sessions of low intensity, steady state cardio, where maybe you ramp that up. So maybe for the first 2 weeks, you don't do any. Next 2 weeks, you do 1 session of low intensity, steady state for 30 minutes. By the final 2 weeks, you're doing 2 sessions of low intensity cardio for 30 minutes each. Okay, keep the step count high. Keep all other variables the same, but basically every week we want to add 100 calories onto our caloric intake. If you feel that that's a little bit too slow, you can also do 200 calories the first week. Sometimes people are just so depleted and so sick of the diet and just want to eat more, that 100 calories will make sense. Now, this might seem very tedious and very slow, but there's always a trade-off for every kind of approach that you take to this. Your reverse dieting wouldn't need to be so stringent if you weren't so aggressive on the front end. If I have a client who's dieted nice and slowly for, let's say, 12 weeks, I might bring them straight back up to maintenance calories because they've had a longer time to institute all of their habits, building up that discipline. And making sure that then once they get straight back up to maintenance calories, a lot of those habits are already solidified. Whereas in this case, I would go nice and slowly. And the advantage you're going to see here as well is that with doing a reverse diet nice and slowly like that, you're going to continue losing body fat while you progressively start to feel better. I see this happen all the time with my clients. By the end of the reverse diet phase, they look their leanest, so they actually look way better than when they ended their aggressive fat loss phase. They feel better, they're lifting more, and this is the point where they really peak at the end of that reverse dieting phase. And usually by the end of it, their maintenance has shifted slightly. So for example, I used to diet at 2,200 calories a day. That was a cut for me. 10 years later, 3,200 calories is where I begin my cutting, right? My maintenance calories have essentially shifted by 1,000 calories. Now, a lot of that is just the nature of the output that I put out there. I don't think my base metabolism has increased to such a wild extent, but it definitely shifted a bit. And that is to be expected when you do things in quite a slow, controlled manner, because the body is always trying to get you back to a state of homeostasis. So when you aggressively diet on the front end, your body shifts its maintenance calories down a little bit, its basal metabolic rate down a little bit to match. And then when you slowly reverse diet back up, your body shifts it a little bit to match that as well, and to try and get everything back to balance. So doing this nice and slowly will actually bring up your metabolic rate, right? Not to a wild extent. A lot of it is just accounted for by your steps, your cardio, your output. But you're increasing all of your outputs in terms of your energy, the amount you're moving. You will lift better. You'll want to move more as you're slowly increasing calories. And by the time you get to a point where your weight has stabilized and you're no longer losing body fat, you will be quite lean. by the time you get there. Okay, phase 3 is the phase that we all want to get to. This is where the world is your oyster, essentially, when it comes to your lifting, to your fitness journey, to maybe you want to do a gaining phase, maybe you want to gain strength, maybe you actually just want to maintain the level of body fat and the body composition that you have, but you want to get more time efficient with your training. Maybe you want to do some cooler moves, like you want to do stuff like, I don't know, the deadlift, the squat, make it nice and time efficient where you get in, you lift heavy, you go intensely, and then you get out, right? You can choose any one of those options, a combination of those options. Just know that it always makes sense to like pursue one goal as like the main goal. So for example, if your goal is to build muscle mass, like make that your goal. And obviously some strength gains will come along for the ride, but it won't be the same as if you decided, I want to do a specific strength phase. Then your strength would be the number one priority. And yes, you'd build some muscle mass, but not to the same extent as if you just made a hypertrophy phase your main goal. Okay, so always be clear about what that one goal is, but you get to decide what that is in this phase. And in this phase, you can become a lot more intuitive with your eating. Your outputs will likely now be very high, so your step count will be higher. You'll be lifting more, so you can start progressively overloading a lot more again. I would say in phase 1, don't even think about it, just try and maintain your lifts. In phase 2, about halfway through, you'll start to see that come up a bit, and then you can push that even further when you get into phase 3. You can also start adding back in different forms of cardio. So for example, if you wanted to do HIIT cardio, like if you really enjoy that, you could do it. And I would advise that even if you're in a gaining phase or in a strength phase, still prioritize cardio. This is the time to actually add it back in, because cardio has amazing benefits for, you know, just your general health, for things like immunity, for things like even stress tolerance, and nutrient partitioning. You're going to actually handle carbohydrates better if you have more cardiovascular conditioning than those who don't. So I wouldn't really prioritize cardio in the fat loss phase, especially if you're going aggressively. I'd prioritize it more when you are looking to stay relatively lean while increasing in other areas. Okay, so that's where I'd add the cardio back in. You're going to have more energy to do it. It's not going to be as big of a drain on your willpower, and you can really build up your capacity to do more cardio during your longer performance phases. So like if you're doing an extended bulk for 6 months, that's actually a great time to work on running 10K. It's a great time to run or to get good at HIIT cardio, believe it or not. You just have more energy to do it. Which is it's completely counterintuitive to the way most people do it, where they tend to throw everything at the wall to see what will stick in terms of fat loss. Whereas as long as you know your numbers on the diet side of things, and none of that is necessary, and it can actually be quite counterproductive. Okay, so I was in the middle of this video, I was meant to do a whole like, subscribe, comment, because it always has a better hit rate if it's done quite early on in the video. I forgot because I just got so into the topic. But please do like, comment, all that good stuff. Also in the description, I'm going to put a link into the slides that have popped up in this video, so you can download them as one continuous PDF if you want to implement this aggressive fat loss phase. It's going to take you, you know, somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks. And that's not even including what you want to do after you do the aggressive fat loss phase, the reverse diet. And then, you know, as I said, you can decide where to take things from there. Thanks very much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next video.